Welcome back to the Physics Friar and this series on Catholic morality. In this second part of our three-part series on the rules or foundations for Catholic morality, we'll discuss how one forms and follows your conscience. So, what is a conscience? Well, this is what the Catechism has to say, that it is a judgment of reason whereby the human person recognizes the moral quality of a concrete act that he is going to perform, is in the process of performing or has already completed. What that's saying basically is it's that little inner voice inside your head that tells you whether or not something you're doing is right or wrong, or something that you are thinking about doing, or something that you've done in the past. Is it right or is it wrong? But here's maybe something that's a little more illuminating from Wordsworth, a famous poet. But above all, the victory is most sure for him who seeking faith by virtue strives to yield entire obedience to the law of conscience, conscience reverenced and obeyed as God's most intimate presence in the soul and his most perfect image in the world. Wordsworth is giving high praise to conscience here as that inner voice inside us, which is the presence, the very presence of God in the soul. So here's a check question for you. Does the Catholic Church agree with Wordsworth? True or false that the Catholic Church regards individual conscience as the highest law one can follow? True or false? Conscience cannot err or make a mistake. If everyone simply followed the dictates of conscience, the world would be free of sin. Pause the video now to determine your answer. Ready? It is true that the Catholic Church regards conscience as the highest law that you can follow, but it is false that conscience cannot err. The Church does believe that conscience is the highest law, but it requires us to form our conscience, because our conscience can make mistakes. Think about these questions here. What has gone into the process of forming or shaping your own conscience? What positive influences have shaped your conscience, and what negative influences have shaped your conscience? If you take the case of the Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, this is an interesting question because he and his brother truly believed to some extent that what they were doing was the right thing. What negative influences might have shaped their conscience? The Church teaches that there are several things that we can do to form our consciences properly. First and foremost, we should use our gift of intellect to think and reason about what is right and wrong. Secondly, we should listen to Jesus Christ, the human par excellence, that perfect human who is both perfect as a human and the perfect image of God. Thirdly, we should look to Jesus' death as the one shining example of what it means to be a loving person and obedient to God. Finally, we need to follow the teachings of the Church on regards of matters of morality and follow the examples of the saints, and to actually use the gifts and graces of the Holy Spirit in making moral decisions. Finally, let's talk about the three sources of morality. What three things do we look to when we are making a moral decision? What does our conscience perceive, or what does our conscience base its moral decisions off of? It's these three things. The moral object, the question, the issue in question, whether or not it's actually right or wrong, and that is the most important source of morality. And then, secondly, the intentions, why we're doing something. That's another way that we can judge whether or not something is good or bad. Thirdly, the circumstances, what's going on around the situation, the who, what, where, and when. All three things are important sources of morality, sources that we use to make a moral decision, but again, the most important is the moral object. These three sources of morality are what we look to determine whether or not some particular action is good or bad, is moral or immoral. So in sum, look to the three sources of morality when you're judging the goodness or badness of an action, and form and follow your conscience. Thanks for watching the Physics Friar.